Dark Histories hopes you enjoy this video on our top 2 cities of the dead. Please smash the like button and subscribe. More importantly, leave a comment and check out our other content. Without any further delay, let's crack on. Number 2. Dargavs, the city of the dead. This is an eerily mysterious necropolis situated just outside of the village of Dargavs in the Prigorodny district of the Republic of North Ossetia, Alania in Russia. Surrounded by the Caucasus Mountains, the city comprises 99 remarkably conserved medieval curved roof crypts with single windows, and at the back of the necropolis stands a large tower. It is estimated that this necropolis and land contains the graves of almost 10,000 people, with human remains being clearly visible and some bodies being so well preserved as to still have flesh on the bones. In terms of architecture, the walls of the crypts are made of stone blocks and mortared with lime or clay lime. In the walls are square entrances for the dead bodies. On the inside of the larger crypts there are pointed groin vault complexes supporting the roof, though on the smaller ones these are pointed barrel vaults. The bigger crypts are between 2 and 4 stories high. Since the 16th century, this remote stretch of southern Russian farmland has been used as a burial ground. Its origins, though, remain a mystery. One theory is that when territory was scarce during the 13th century Mongol Tatar invasion, locals living in this 17 km valley of the Caucasus Mountains began to create similarly structured above-ground crypts to conserve space. Another theory suggests that the city of the dead was created following the Indo-Iranian tradition established by the migrating Sarmatians who settled in southern Russia and buried their dead above ground to respect the land. Legends have it that in the 18th century a plague swept through Ossetia as a punishment from the gods who were upset about how a young woman had been treated centuries earlier. It is said that the woman enchanted all of the men in Dargavs with her beauty, prompting deadly brawls and calls for village elders to decide who should marry her. The village elders realized the enchantress was the source of deadly conflict. But they also fell in love with her and were too jealous to vanquish her because they didn't want a man from another village to marry her. Their solution was to put her to death, a decision that brought a dark curse upon Dargavs. The plague decimated the local population, causing fear and panic amongst the locals. People built quarantine houses for sick family members, who were provided with food but not the freedom to move about until they died. People who did not have any remaining family members to bury them would just wait in the city until death. It was a very slow, painful, and lonely way to go. The locals believe that if a man travels into the city they will never return alive, and that the ghosts of the plague victims seek their vengeance on the living whenever possible. As a result, local Ossetians seldom if ever go to the city by choice. Due to how difficult it is to get to the site, a 3-hour drive down a very dangerous hidden road, very few archaeologists have been able to study the city. Those who have made some unusual discoveries here. Some of the bodies in the crypts were buried in wooden structures that look like boats. The mystery remains as to how the boats came to be in a place with no navigable rivers. One possible explanation is that the departed soul had to cross a river to get to heaven. The grounds near the complex are scattered with coins. Ossetians would throw a coin for a dead family member from the hill, and if it hit a stone, it was believed that this indicated the soul of the deceased had reached heaven. This could also be done in the small wells that are in front of every crypt. Visitors are not encouraged to visit the city, as bones have been stolen and some crypts desecrated with graffiti amongst other things. Those crypts holding criminals are completely out of bounds due to the belief that their ghosts are extremely violent and ready to mete out punishment on the unsuspecting visitors. Would you visit Dargavs? Number 1. The Glasgow Necropolis. This is a Victorian cemetery in Glasgow, Scotland. It is on a low but very prominent hill to the east of Glasgow Cathedral. It is estimated that 50,000 individuals have been buried here. Typical for the period, only a small percentage are named on monuments, approximately 3,500, and not every grave has a stone. With that many residents, this really is a city of the dead. Following the creation of Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris, a wave of pressure began for cemeteries in Britain. This required a change in the law to allow burial for profit. Previously the parish church held responsibility for burying the dead, but there was a growing need for an alternative. Glasgow was one of the first to join this campaign, having a growing population, with fewer and fewer attending church. Led by Lord Provost James Ewing of Strathalleven, the planning of the cemetery was started by the Merchants' House of Glasgow in 1831, in anticipation of a change in the law. The Cemeteries Act was passed in 1832 and Glasgow Necropolis officially opened in April 1833. Just prior to this, in September 1832, a Jewish burial ground had been established in the northwest section of the land. This small area was declared full in 1851. Predating the cemetery, the statue of John Knox sitting on a column at the top of the hill dates from 1825. Famous architects were involved in designing various parts of the cemetery. Alexander Thompson designed a number of its tombs, and John Bryce and David Hamilton designed other architecture for the grounds. The main entrance is approached by a bridge over what was then the Mollendina Burn. The bridge, which was designed by David Hamilton, was completed in 1836. It became known as the Bridge of Sighs because it was part of the route of funeral processions. The ornate gates were erected in 1838, restricting access onto the bridge. 3 modern memorials lie between the gates and the bridge: a memorial to stillborn children, a memorial to the Korean War, and a memorial to Glaswegian recipients of the Victoria Cross. The cemetery, as with most early Victorian cemeteries, is laid out as an informal park, lacking the formal grid layouts of later cemeteries. This layout is further enhanced by the complex topography. The cemetery's paths meander uphill towards the summit, where many of the larger monuments stand, clustered around the John Knox monument. The necropolis also happens to be one of the most haunted places in the world, with regular paranormal sightings of apparitions, ghosts, and other unworldly things. According to legend, it is the home of the Gorbals vampire, a 7-foot-tall, child-eating vampire with metal teeth. At the height of this legend in the early 50s, hundreds of local children patrolled the cemetery with sticks and knives in search of the creature which they believed had eaten 2 local boys. Then there is the story of a ghostly white lady who has been seen floating through the cemetery at night, and a mysterious low mist is also seen to roll in with no apparent explanation. Would you be willing to spend the night at the Glasgow Necropolis?